Hello YouTube. Today I am going to show you how to make a staff sling. So a staff sling is exactly the same as a hand sling, except you're using a stick. So what I'm going to be showing you is how to make the staff, which is the trickiest bit because it takes measuring, cutting, and a little bit of this and that and the other. I've found an effective way of doing it that's really resource-like. So essentially we're going to start with one of these. This is a piece of large doweling. This is the largest one of wicks, and they'll come in double this length. You should generally start with a pole that's long enough for you to use as a walking stick. And when I say a walking stick, you should be able to hold it with four fingers from elbow to the floor. Right. So the things you're going to need is a pencil, some sort of craft knife. This one's a modern Moran, and a hacksaw blade. Now the reason that you need the hacksaw blade is because you're going to be cutting quite deep into this very, very quickly. It's not going to be very easy to do with the knife. You can do it with the knife. I just like the hacksaw blade better, and always be careful if you don't feel comfortable using very sharp knives yourself, or hacksaw blades or anything like that. Get someone to sit with you and do it. You're responsible for your own actions. Do not come crying to me if you cut your fingers off, because I warned you. So, I'm going to start with one of these. We're going to end up with something that looks something like this. Now this is a design that I found online. It's kind of an amalgamation of various different designs. In the creation of this design, I created a couple and took them down the park and used them with some of my friends. It's fairly effective. So it's made up of three parts: the hook and the stop. Now, first thing you need to notice actually, is that everything is four fingers. So your hook is four fingers down. Your stop, we'll call this bit the stop because it's the stop up, and we'll call this bit the permanent. Okay, so one part, so this is where you're going to tie on your sling, and this notch all the way around stops the string coming up over the top, because that's dangerous. The hook is here. We've also got the carved moulding on the back. Okay, so how do we make it? We grab our pole and we grasp it reasonably at the top. And we make our first mark. We make our first mark there. Then what we do is we take the hacksaw blade. If you have a work table, use a work table. This is dangerous. I need a work table, but I haven't got the money at the moment because electric bill. Now you don't want to saw all the way through. You want to saw about halfway, right, or a good distance in. So just let me show you this. If you've gone down, yeah, there. So if you've gone down to the point where you've covered the blade completely, and you've gone a couple of mil down more, then that's about enough. Okay. The next part is that you take your craft knife. This is going to be sharp. This one isn't particularly sharp at the moment, but persevere. But I'll persevere for YouTube. And then make sure it has a good seat. Now, I would personally recommend that you have something like a coffee table, which is currently what your viewpoint is stood on, because that's quite good, or a skirting board. If you sit with this wedged into a skirting board, so it's not going to go anywhere, put your thumb on the end, and start shaving away. Right? Make sure you are always shaving away from you. Never shave towards with you with a sharp knife. Always shave away from you. When you shave away from you, you're not going to cut yourself in the neck. You're not, put that down. You're not going to cut yourself in the neck. You're not going to cut yourself in the chest. You're not going to cut your fingers. Always cut away from you. It doesn't really matter because we've cut this knock here before. We've cut the knock and the knife will just stop there and you'll be able to feel it. Okay, so we've made a start here. Right. So we've made a start here, look, of where we've started to create the hook. Now, if you want my suggestion, what I would do is I would leave about a thumb's width. Is that I would leave about a thumb's width, or maybe less. Yeah, about a thumb's width away from the end where you just leave it, and that will be the start of your hook. But just make sure that you mould the back as well. However, we've started our hook there. Let's do a bit more and see how quickly I can do this. So if I can just show you my technique. So what I'm doing very basically is, while making sure that this is seated well, always make sure that this is seated well, otherwise it'll slip down or do stuff. You want to have as much control over this as possible. Is what I'm doing is I'm drawing the blade down at an angle just doing little sheets at a time, long strokes as possible, but little stroke. Right. And then all you have to do is just keep going, keep crafting, making sure it's nice and smooth. The longer stroke that you have, the longer strokes that you have, the smoother your hook will be. Smoother the hook will be, less resistance on your cords. The less resistance you have on your cord, I would suggest going back as far as your cut is, but you don't have to do that, and because that hole isn't big enough to get cord into it. Okay. So what we're going to do next, so I'm going to show you the next bit now, is again 4 fingers. 4 fingers from the bottom of the hook into the stop down and make another hole. Now because we're going to go all the way around, all you want to do is just cover the hacksaw blade. So just to show you what I'm doing, I've got the hacksaw blade and I'm only just finishing just as it's being covered by the wood, and I'm going to go all the way around with the hacksaw blade, and then I'm going to show you how to create a stop like this. Right, so I'm not sure if you can see that. Yeah, you can. Right, okay, so what you can see there is the line, is the guideline. Now that's going to dictate your depth as well, because we want it not so thick to weaken it, not so thin to weaken this, but we want it thick enough, but we want the gap big enough to put the jute cord. We want enough wood left over not to weaken this, so it doesn't come apart when kiwis are flying through the air. We also don't want it too thick, because again, the cord may slip. But I've had really good results with this technique. So what we're going to do is, this is actually safer than doing the hook. So if you take it like a sergeant's baton, stick it under your arm like that, and use the same technique as we've used on the hook, and then cut down. Now what you're going to find is that you're going to start creating a little bit of a wedge that's going to come away from the rest of the wood. That's fine, that's just because as you're pushing through slightly with the effort. The sharper your knife is, the less this will actually happen, because you're cutting through the wood easier, in virtue of having a sharp knife. The gods are with us. Okay, cool. Right. So just to show you, so we've got our cut here, and now once you've started this, all you need to do is just keep extending it. It's really just to keep extending it around, just so you can see just so you have it all the way around. So if I have the one that I made earlier, because there's totally blue Peter, ragged Peter, you can see that I've made cuts all the way around, thinning it out, while making sure that it's actually still quite strong. And there we have it. So that's actually come together quite nicely. So you can see that quite clearly. We've got the stop there, even with my fingers and my thumb, I'm making that connection. It's very clear that my finger's not going to go over there reasonably. Okay, we've got the start of our hook here. We've got the start of our hook. That is just going to take shaving, it's going to take time, and me going over the same area again with a knife. I'm also, something I'm going to have to do is mode the back, which is just the same technique as using this, where we just put it underneath our arm like a sergeant's baton, and we let the knife do the work. The major difference with this one is start with nice long strokes, then as you get towards the tip, go for shorter, shallower ones. The thing that you've got to think of is that when this is being swung forward like this, because this is the way that they would be used and swung forward like that, you have a hook which is going to go up and over. You've got a knot there, and as you're flicking it over, it's going to hit that. Now, is it going to hit that and stop and then be dragged over by momentum, or is it going to hit that, or is it going to hit that, slide, because that's what it's going to do, because that's what the wood is telling it to do, and swing off. And that literally means a couple of more feet. So I'm going to terminate here because now we're at 17 minutes. I hope that you enjoy this video. Like if you want, comment if you have any questions. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, now Instagram, and surprisingly Musically. Although I'm not a content creator, I should point out there are too many massively talented people for me to dirty their content, for me to dirty what they're doing over there. Magical stuff. Anyway, peace out.